Hello, good people. Welcome to Off the Deep End, a Deep Listens podcast where we explore role-playing video games. Generally, in depth. My name is Jeff Rude, the host and the most noted Soma Bringer of this operation. Joining me in this round of recordings, we have, here he is, awakened from a 1,000-year imprisonment in a ring somewhere in the Persian Gulf. It's Chris, Zombie Pie Redacted. Hello, Chris.
Oh, way down south in the land of traitors, rattlesnakes, and alligators. Oh, wait, wrong podcast. I thought this was my historical reenactment podcast. Hey, Jeff.
Whoa, okay. That's, how do you top that, ladies and gentlemen? We have musical production.
I mean, Jeff, you could make a commitment that this spin-off series of ours will last longer than the Confederacy. I think that's fair enough, right?
I make no guarantees, but boy howdy, in terms of setting life goals, that is a fine one. Also joining us here in this endeavor to outlive a racist, horrible institution that the U.S. Army put down and brags about to this day, celebrated Dragon Rancher and tactical mastermind Braden, Arbitrary Water, Redacted. Hello, Braden.
Hi, hello. I am here. I canceled Dungeons & Dragons for this. Ironically, here to party.
There is a little. Yeah. Hey. Well. Also, joining us for the first time, welcome onto the show. He's foreign, but he does not require any localization work. It's Kyle, RekiWylls Redacted. Hello.
Hey, hi. You said Final Fantasy into a microphone too many times.
Yeah, you say it 3 times, and a certain kind of person does start to show up on your Discord.
Hey,
Start
Reki.
mentioning Final Fantasy 15.
Start saying Zidane enough, and
You're in a safe place, Reki. You can actually say your real opinions about Final Fantasy IX without Gino getting up on your ass.
We don't like it here.
It's the second best Final Fantasy.
It's the bad one.
Yeah, it's not.
I don't need to litigate this. I'm trying to have
Which
friends.
Monokemia game is better than Final Fantasy 9?
The first one. Second one's not so good.
I've been watching you play that. And
Hey, are we already
boy.
jumping into the what are you streaming?
Yeah, let's
sure.
get that out of the way. Because I've got some. I want to put some good on you guys as well. But y'all talk about your streaming business.
Wait, I gotta sing the song? Okay.
Oh
I
yeah,
gotta
here we
sing
go.
the song.
Catch it up.
Tell me about your stream. Tell me about your stream.
He really doesn't give you any heads up on these bits, does he?
No.
No.
That's if you've been listening to the Prime show or the Final Fantasy episodes and being like, man, they guys put a lot of work. No.
Yeah, I always figured he would tip you off beforehand.
We do generally play the game before we talk about it, but yeah. Anyway, streaming. We're gonna talk about streaming.
So it seems like Reki's been playing some hot goodness every Friday on his stream. RekiWylls, WYLLS.
Yeah,
Monokemia 2 seems like it's a real bummer of a game.
Ulrich's route.
It sure is.
Especially considering that there's a pervert character who seems like a piece of shit.
Imagine writing a character that's so bad that someone who likes this game is considering cutting his character quests out of the archives.
Huh.
This is the dude
so
in the cat
painful.
suit.
Yeah, this is the dude in the cat suit.
He's probably 50 years old and hanging out with a bunch of teenage girls.
All right.
It's like Master Roshi, but worse.
It's so much worse. Oh, God. I don't want to think about it.
There is a soft spot in my heart for the character Master Roshi, but I do know he is a bad person. You're not meant to be like him. In the same way I appreciate Tenchi's dad, basically, from Tenchi Muyo. If I ever go to a con, I think I'm going to go as Tenchi's dad. I find him a delightful man who has very simple things that he likes. If they happen to be the harem that his son wound up having.
He's very proud of his son, but he's not going to ogle for too long or say things publicly that make you go, yee.
Yeah, he has a sort of drag show host energy to him. I'm not cool enough to actually be a part of this, and yet I get to tag along.
I'm still amazed that bikini pageant show episode aired on Toonami.
Yeah.
I'm still amazed that episode actually aired.
My wife told me that was an unedited episode, and I was like, that's fucking nuts. Like,
yeah, it's a fucking of all, like, considering what they did to edit, like, fucking every other show, including like Dragon Ball and Sailor Moon. Yeah. Rurouni Kenshin. Samurai, like, all those shows got edited, but that episode aired unedited almost.
Cousins who just like really holding hands.
Yeah. Hey, we've all been there.
So, Braden, you've switched to a new concept for your stream series. So, you're now no longer doing Dubious RPGs.
So I finished the Wheel of Dubious RPGs, and in the month since we recorded our last Grundy episode, I think we all had some stuff happen, like all of us academic related things. One of us had to go back to teaching. One of us had to go back to working in an academic environment, and one of us started graduate school, and boy howdy, having to do things again, it's hard. But as part of my continuing quest to find the most good bad video games on this planet, I have decided to start the Wheel of Dubious FPSs, which led to me playing through all of Daikatana.
Ah, yes.
Oh no!
You've been
not just Daikatana. You played co-op Daikatana.
I played Daikatana co-op. I got my friend Justin to play Daikatana with me.
You have both been made bitches, I believe, is the
No, you see, I have made John Romero my bitch because I finished his video game.
What a fucking awful
John Romero seems like a nice man.
He really does.
Empire of Sin wasn't boring.
Yeah, his latter years, he seems to probably have softened quite a bit from his... I love the work in the top floor. Like, I don't know, I grew up in Texas for a long time. The idea of being in, like, the nth story of a building in the summer just makes me want to die conceptually. Of the torture.
I read Masters of Doom this year. That was part of the impetus. And just reading like, hey man, top floor of a Dallas skyscraper with a big old penthouse suite filled with windows. It's like,
just assy.
Might be hard to AC that.
Honestly, I think it's a miracle that Ion Storm, based off of everything I've read about it, I think it's honestly a miracle that Deus Ex and One Good Thief game came out of them. That was
the Austin studio. That was Warren Spector's studio.
But even then, the excesses like contaminated every part of that company.
Yeah, the rot was very deep. And yet,
at some point, we're gonna play Anachronox, probably.
Oh Jesus!
Yeah.
Oh man.
Pick that up for $1 at some point. Hey, we should probably play Daikatana for the Game Boy Color, too. You know, it is kind of an ARPG.
They made a Game Boy Color Daikatana?
It's basically a
Sit
Zelda.
Down, friends. Yes, it's basically Zelda. It only got released in Europe, I think. It's
And from what I hear, it's, like, actually good.
Yeah, it's okay. If you go back and dig through the Hardcore Gaming 101 podcast archives, they did a whole episode of the Game Club 1990X show on Daikatana for the GBC, which spurred me to play it. Yeah, it's okay. It's better than you would think. I wouldn't, in terms of like top 25 or hidden gems, like I don't think it really hits any of those. But in terms of, I went onto the internet and suddenly had every Game Boy Color game in a zip file. It's worth looking at, you know.
The number of, like, that weird era where, like, there were occasionally good games on the portable handhelds, but it was never a guarantee. Like, the delta between the good games and the bad games and how random... Like, I still think about that Game Boy Color Metal Gear game because I liked it so much. And I still think that might be the most joy I've ever had with a Metal Gear game. And if you know, you know.
You didn't get joy cutting moo cows up in MGS4?
Fuck off that with that. It's fucking every part of that game. Like,
I look forward to playing both of these at some point, but I got Metal Gear
Look
Solid
forward
3
to
in front of me.
playing the Game Boy Color version of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, which is based on me as a 9-year-old child remembering that game being okay.
Those games are held up by some people.
But also buck turfs. So,
Fuck you, J.K. Rowling.
Priorities.
I'll say something nice about your shit when you're fucking dead.
We could just not. Those are books for babies.
Anyways,
read a real book, nerds.
Hell yeah. Dunk on people for liking stuff.
Yeah, Wheel of Time.
Wheel of Time, bitch. Gotta get ready before the FPS Amazon series
is on the wheel of dubious FPSs.
Oh Jesus, that's right. They did make a Wheel of Time game, and it's
in the Unreal Engine.
Oh,
it's one of the few games that was published by, I believe, the very short-lived Simon and Schuster game publishing arm.
Oh God, did they do the Gods and Generals game too?
They did.
There's also, I think they might have also had some hand in Darkened Sky, which is the Skittles game.
Yep. God damn it, a YouTube channel did a dive on that game a while ago. Mini Me's, I think.
So Legend Entertainment. Yeah, Spellcasting 101, Sorcerers, Get All the Girls, Time Quite. Wow. Yeah, this is man. Woo!
So, Chris, what have you been streaming?
Well, I finished something that I last time we talked. I'd started a game called Sword Art Online Lost Song. The less said about that, the better. A character has AIDS, apparently. The fuck? I don't know. So yeah, that was not good. I should have stopped playing that game, but I kept going.
What?
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
well, okay.
It
So
happened.
I'm trying to articulate this because it is a genuine thought. Because there's a world where I think they introduced in like South Africa a character on Sesame Street that was HIV positive, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a world where this is, in a sense, someone trying to do a good, trying to do a represent, and like it's okay. But what do you think the purpose was of including an HIV positive character in this?
Here's a character in a harem, and they need drama.
All right.
And we're going to interject drama into this story by AIDS.
All right.
Yeah, they needed a plot device character.
A video game with a plot where nothing happens for 90% of its runtime except the worst anime slice of life garbage.
How many onsen episodes do we get?
We got, when I was playing that game, it was 2. Well, not on one. There was a beach episode. Are we grouping beach episodes with bikini episodes with onsen episodes?
Let's roll those into
I
a
separate
cigar.
them.
You separate them, then one onsen.
All right. Tell you what, I want to go have an onsen episode because there's some hot springs in this state that I've still not been to, but they do not open again until April.
The more interesting thing that I did is I revived my video series, my stream series of the quest for the worst adventure game puzzle, and holy shit, I've started playing a game called Atlantis. I fucking forgot the title. The Lost Tales, and this is a Myst clone from Cryo Interactive, a studio that originally got started in Europe. I believe they are located in some part of Europe that created like edutainment versions of like Myst clones. So I think one of their big claims to fame is they made a ghost mystery game that takes place in Versailles, and it's like, or Versailles, and you're going back and forward in time, and you're interacting with like the bourgeoisie of
Yes,
1800s
Louis
France,
XIV.
whatever. But Atlantis. The Lost Tales is a video game that is designed in a way that really only existed for like a 4 or 5 year period when Myst was considered the biggest video game ever made. And it's slowly destroying me. It's the last time I played that game. Literally, there was a Braden, you were there. There was
Yeah.
a 18-step chase sequence where if I inputted the wrong direction, so basically the character needs to move like on missed screens, like 18 screens, and if I go in the wrong direction even once on each screen, I just instantly die and have to boot up my save. And
It
And
doesn't give you great feedback on that. And I just think it's funny that, when you think of the biggest games of 1993, you think Doom and Myst. And I feel like we have accidentally each picked one and made our poor life choices streaming features based around those two things.
it's a lot.
Is it a hypercard game like Myst? Because that's the thing with original Myst. It's literally written in hypercard. It's like kind of a very elaborate
So that's
PowerPoint.
that's the weird thing about how this game is super ambitious. It's actually completely 3D rendered. So like the entire environments are 3D. The
Okay.
characters are not FMV or live action stills. They're actually like full polygonal character
Barely
sprites.
detailed polygonal
Barely
models
detailed for the
97.
times.
Okay.
They're fully voice acted. They animate horribly, but for 1997, 1998, I'm still kind of impressed by the production values. The problem is like it's a beautiful game. It sounds good. It's just it plays like shit. It literally is
It's a weird surrealist nightmare.
like it takes place in like fantasy Atlantis where they have like steampunkian high-tech, low-tech stuff, but then they're like there's Roman centurions that are wearing Bronze Age Egyptian makeup, and then the architecture is like Roman, and then sometimes it's like Bronze Age Greece. It's just this anachronistic, like, let's just put all this like Bronze Age culture into one spot and call it Atlantis. And then, it plays like shit. Like there's a part of the game that just made my fucking head explode where I needed to solve a planetarium puzzle where I had to align two gizmos and gadgets in a straight line, but there's no input. Like, so normally when you play these old school adventure games, it's like, I line these two pieces and they shoot a laser and it's clearly going in the wrong direction and I got to do this. But you literally have to move like 3 gears. And then once you align the gears perfectly, then something pops off. But there's 18 different inputs. And I'm kind of left to say, the only way I could possibly figure this out is if I literally was stuck on this puzzle trying to solve it just for hours in one day, or I just looked up the game FAQs.
Okay. Here's a question for you that will determine my next question. How do you feel about Roberta Williams?
I think there was a really good article about Roberta Williams, which is Roberta Williams is someone who Roberta
like
Williams
everyone
is...
sighs.
She pioneered a generation of computer games, and then also was willing to take massive risks with some of the games creatively that she made. Like, we make fun of Phantasmagoria, but that game was like the first like hard R one of those, and it's a failure by all means of like narrative and like gameplay, but she had a massive legacy in terms of really making PC games like on par technically and narratively with what was being done on consoles. And the only problem is that she really, primed the pump in terms of the incomprehensible nature of games, especially on the PC side of things.
To wit, might I recommend you have a look at Wizard and the Princess for this?
Yeah.
I played King's Quest 8 for my streams.
Well, let me tell you, all of the refinement that went into King's Quest 8, which we can all snicker at, I suppose, Wizard and the Princess is basically a prequel to King's Quest 1. And the bragging point they had at the time was that the game had like 1,000 rooms, most of which are in one fucking maze.
Oh,
Oh no.
So there you go. You want to see some pretty good puzzle design from 41 years ago. Might I recommend Wizard and the Princess? It's probably available somewhere. Who can say, he says while shrugging and pointing toward the Great White North.
I'm reading that Ken and Roberta Williams are putting out a new game this year.
No shit.
There's a really good article by Ion Design about Roberta Williams and how, she pioneer, a female graphic design and computer designer during her era, pioneer, a complete pioneer.
Sierra Online, a pioneering company. They more or less invented boxed PC games as an industry.
Yeah, they made PC games a thing. And, the topics that they tackled, as this article points out, it intersects labor, class, and gender.
Yeah.
During the 80s, the 80s to early 90s. But the unfortunate thing is that we're at a stage in terms of game design where no one really knows how to express their feelings about Roberta Williams other than to single her out.
Yeah.
Mm.
She, if nothing else, she was prolific. She certainly refined a certain subset of ideas of what games could be to her. She fucking had a crease, but that crease changed over time, and she continued to put stuff out. As it happens, all of the games that she put out are now approaching 40 or over 40 and are not particularly to anyone's taste anymore, I guess.
Yeah, but how many movies, television shows, radio programs could stand the test of time?
Sure.
And trying to graft that onto Roberta Williams's works, I've always felt is a bit unfair.
Indeed. Yeah. I mean, we started the show playing Ultima 4, which is also very important and also maybe does not translate well to contemporary taste for games.
Anyways, we played 3 games for this thing that we're going to talk about, I think, right?
Indeed. And hey, Chris, what is the distinguishing feature of all of these games?
None of them were officially translated. They all have since been fan translated, varying qualities, and we're going to get to the bottom. Put on your doctor's gloves. We got to put our fists deep into this analysis and figure out, why did these games not come to the West and or any English-speaking,
territories,
markets?
Indeed. Let's run them down. I'm going to go ahead and introduce them. Everyone's very excited. This is my favorite part because it's the research that I do, believe it or not. First of all, in chronological order of these 3 games, we've got Bahamut Lagoon, which was originally developed by Square and published by Square for the Nintendo Super Famicom. February 9th, 1996 was its release day, and it was subsequently released nowhere, just some virtual console releases. Who did the translation work? 2 outfits, really. The first, a consortium of individuals, the name of which includes a really fun slur. In or around 2002 is when the first, 1.0 of that was released. And then the second, this year, in fact, by the recently departed Nier. The developer of the Higan/BSNES emulator to boot. We're going to talk probably a lot about this, because this is a major actual tragedy that Nier is no longer with us. But to keep things rolling, also we're going to be looking at Arabian Nights, which is another Super Famicom game. It was developed by Pandora's Box, or just Pandora Box, not Possessive, just Pandora Box. Published by Takara on June 14th, 1996. So only 4 months separate these games, which is, when you think about these games coming out in the same year seems kind of wild to me. And the third stems from me doing the devil's work with a DSi. It's Soma Bringer, which was originally developed by Monolith Soft, the Xenoblade people, the Xenosaga people, and published by Nintendo for the Nintendo DS February 28th, 2008. Subsequently released nowhere. It's the only release that game ever had. That was fan-translated. I can't believe I didn't write down the organization for that. Apparently I didn't write down the one for Arabian Nights either, so shame on me. But it's okay. All of these are available on romhacking.net, by the way, for anyone who wants to play around with this stuff.
Don't call the cops on us.
Hey, nonsense.
No.
Perfect. You just buy your legitimate copy. You go to Babbage's.
Your legally dumped copy of
Yeah.
Bahamut Lagoon that
Go
you bought in
Funko Land.
Shibuya,
And, anyway.
Shinjuku.
The $200 cartridge ripper, and then you only keep the file on your computer for 24 hours every time. And you delete it. Hey, we like to have fun here, and if you'd like to be a part of all the fun, including the pre-show discussions of these games, you could consider kicking into the Deep Listens Patreon. That's right, it's patreon.com/deeplistens, patreon.com/deeplistens. Any dollar amount is deeply appreciated, does actually help us pay for some of the stuff that we use along the way, including games and that sort of thing. So very appreciated, and it will get you access to a super secret Discord full of cool people like the other people on this podcast, bar me, and sometimes we'll even have you on these shows, such as Reki here, who's been a wonderful community member for as long as I can recall. You can also holler at us in that Discord, or you can send it in the form of a personal, private, electronic mail to inquiries@deep.lol. That is inquiries@deep.lol. That's right, deep.lol. $20 a year for that one. You're welcome. Also, before we really deep into this, I want to shout out specifically ZP here in Arbitrary Water. Both your writing on Giant Bomb has been very good as of late.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a lot of fun digging through your stuff. My spouse, I think, is in the other room playing Dragon Age Origins right now, and I just read Arbitrary Water's write-up of that specific game. Pretty much mirrored my thoughts, and that always feels good. It feels good to be right. I am a shallow man. Speaking of things that aren't right, let's talk about Bahamut Lagoon. And the slur that's on the title screen.
Yeah, Braden, you're the one who said that there were 2 translations for this game.
Yeah.
I did not know about Nier's translation until I went digging.
Well, it's
I
very
sure
new,
enabled
isn't it?
this.
It's only,
and then Reki sent me the link to the old one.
Yeah, that's the one I was
asked for
familiar
it.
with. This is a ROM that I've fiddled with at different points through the years, and it, I don't know if it's the same set of individuals, but there was a sort of community concerted effort to translate some of these sort of white whale-ish SNES, Super Famicom JRPGs, which, we'll just say the name one time, went by the name DJAP, J-A-P. So I don't think we need to necessarily explain why this is bad. Just say maybe don't use that word in 2021, except if you're trying to demonstrate a very specific point. And it's really ugly. You boot up, your translated Tales of Fantasia, or your until this year
Tales of Fantasia and Star Ocean.
Star Ocean. So they went
Okay.
after the big ones.
Every single late model SNES JRPG.
Yeah, it is basically Star Ocean and Tales of Fantasia. I think are all 6 megabyte cartridges, so 48 megabit. So they're like the biggest commercial releases on the system. So it was certainly a non-zero amount of work that they put in to translate these at the time. And yet they did it with this really kind of icky fucking sour note that's just always going to be there. So don't do that. Having said that, they did the work, and we can now assess it, and through that work, I guess, assess Bahamut Lagoon in some sense. So, it's a late Square game.
Okay. Can I introduce this?
Yeah.
I unleashed this upon you. So this is a game I have wanted to look into for a while, because I heard, Square made a weird Final Fantasy Fire Emblem tactic thing for the for the Super Famicom. And also apparently the translation. The other thing I remember about it was the translation was very scuffed, and very of its era. I think there's jokes about lube or something, and a lot of swearing because listen, if in the Japanese language the word ksa can mean many different things.
I had a lot of experience with that group. Their version of Star Ocean, and I remember they were always a bit notorious about like being selective in terms of what they wanted to translate. Like the thing that jumps out to me is in Star Ocean. I don't know if any of you have ever played Star Ocean 1.
Only like the first 10 minutes.
They never translated the yes/no dialogue bubbles. They always just left the Japanese text there.
They did what?
They want you to fucking like learn the button prompts the way that God intended. So like all of the button prompts are untranslated. And whenever there's a dialogue choice where it says, do you want to click yes or no? Nah, fuck you. There's an X there and a circle there. You should use context clues.
Was it like an in-joke?
No. It is important to say that group has since disbanded, and I think they've all either left the fan subbing community or gone on to greener pastures, which is why it was kind of necessary for someone to take up the mantle to do a better translation, because like, don't you love it when people make obscure references to Japanese culture or anime culture or even just regular pop culture from the 90s or of the era? And, you know,
I love 90s meme. Well, not even memes. Pre-memes, 90s pop culture references.
Yeah. The entire working design not the entire, that's like not fair to working design. They just would, every once in a while, they'd slip in horrible shit like that into what was otherwise like, I just want to play Cosmic Fantasy 2 on my TurboGrafx, you fuckers. Like, I don't want to hear about Bill Clinton. I really don't.
Yeah, and that's really weird because sometimes those ones that find a weird way to interject weird pop culture or substitute the name of an NPC with the name of the fan subber. That's translating that line of text. Like, they're the ones that are most likely to say, we got to stay as faithful to the original Japanese source material as possible.
Listen, when he says "kaso," he means
honorifics,
fuck.
You fucker.
He only says fuck.
Yeah, those people, you don't make direct eye contact with those types of people.
There's a lot of those people on the internet nowadays. It's a bad time.
The people who, like, whenever Crunchyroll announces a new localization of a fucking show, it's like, I bet you translated it weird and you did the onomatopoeias not the way that I want.
It's a very, specifically... There's a lot of things wrong with it, but among them, there's, like, a weird classist, like, oh, you didn't go to school for 4 years studying Japanese? It's like, yeah, I grew up in a place that was not even an option for me. Like, fuck me for not being bilingual. Like, that's probably my fault. You know what? I should not be able to enjoy art. You're right.
See, Jeff, I feel like the opposite is true, and I feel like a lot of these people are the people who, like, took some Japanese classes in college, but maybe don't necessarily have a perfect grasp of the language. And so...
Somehow even worse.
But they're like, listen, this... Okay, here's my example that I'm going to put these people on blast, and if you are one of these people, I'm sorry, but also...
Eat shit.
No, it's okay.
Eat shit.
Live in your truth,
okay.
man. Here we are.
Okay, so there was a group of people who retranslated Fire Emblem Fates, a game that was localized in English by Nintendo of America.
Yeah,
I know exactly.
I remember this.
Because they were so incensed about the removal of the face touching minigame, and also some of the concessions the NOA translation makes towards, like, there's an infamous support in that game that is like kind of weird and homophobic and kind of gay conversion therapy unintentionally. And so there was
stuff that really makes the game better, you know? Like,
Here's the thing, Fire Emblem Fate's story and writing is fucking terrible. Like, I will defend Conquest as a sadism fest, as a fun tactics sadist game.
As one of those
But-
final Fire Emblem games, not one
Yes.
of the cat. Yeah.
Like, they made a Fire Emblem game for me, and it hates you. But the writing in that game, all 3 campaigns, is absolute dog shit and not worth the effort.
To buy a third campaign to get the true ending of a fucking game.
The true ending is terrible. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. I mean,
Good.
like, I played Birthright because I'm baby and poo baby diaper baby.
Same.
And like, I don't know, the sense I got, it just felt very like triumphantalist. It's just like, yep, we're gonna reclaim the throne of this other kingdom. There's not gonna be any complications to this. Like, I don't know, it was very flat. Was how I felt about Birthright.
It's not great.
Yeah.
But
anyways,
versus like the intrigues of like, your 776s and shit.
This is just me going, hey, people who are way into transliteration, eat shit.
the weird thing about this,
2002 ass fan sufferers.
We spent more time talking about the questionable translation. I dabbled in it. I think it's safe to say there's absolutely no reason for anyone not to play Bahamut not play it with the near translation, because my impression was that it was better in almost every single regard, and it's just objectively better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you look at the romhacking.net, which again is like a really wonderful repository for the stuff for people who are not necessarily swimming in this little lake, the production note, there's space basically for people who submit to kind of leave some like, here's what our thought process was. And I'm not looking at it right now, but the tone of a lot of older ones is kind of like, here's the first paragraph of the wiki article about this game. Yeah, we decided we'd get together and retranslate this. Hope you enjoy it. It's kind of messy. You probably need a headed patch. There's like, I don't know, a very mechanical nature to it. If you look at the notes that Nier left on his translation, he's like explained some process. He talks about having to basically go in more or less into assembly and like reprogram parts of the game to allow for wider text boxes so his translation would actually fit in it. Like, there's a certain amount of love he puts onto that work, or they put onto that work, I should say, because I don't know who Nier is from Apple Butter. It comes off a lot more professional and respectful of like the original text. I can't really speak to the quality of it because I actually spent most of my time with the old and busted version. But yeah, there's a tone there. I think the scene has kind of grown up in some way. Like, I really do, just based on like the sort of stuff that gets released now and the kind of production notes around it. I've talked a lot here. Does anyone notice this, or am I crazy?
I just remember that Nier had been working on it prior to their death, which we'll get to. Nier had said that they had made multiple attempts to translate the game since 1998. And so this was really a passion project of theirs while they were working on Hygon or Beast Nest. So it's a labor of love, and I'm glad they got it out. Nier's other contribution to the fan translation was Der Langreiser the Second, and then also they did supporting text translation for the Mother 3 fan translation project, which
is problematic, but I'm glad it exists.
I'm glad it exists.
Is that the completed existing fan translation that's out there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's weird that they don't want to have the game that talks about gypsies out in the public. It's just crazy.
Weird.
Who could
listen, guys? Nintendo will release Omega Labyrinth live onto the Switch, but they won't release Mother 3, guys.
They're really convinced that it's the music in Mother 3 that's holding it back.
Yeah, it's not like there's a scene where it's like, fuck.
There's not some questionable depictions of dark-skinned people.
Character. And that too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just whatever. They don't even bat a fucking eye at it. That's what gets me.
And here's
Other
the weird
three.
part. I don't know about the rest of you. Bahamut Lagoon's probably, of the 3 games we played, the only game I feel like we really need to talk about the mechanics, because mechanically it's the most interesting to talk about.
It certainly is, yeah.
That said, I didn't fucking like playing these games, and that included Bahamut Lagoon. I thought that Bahamut Lagoon was maybe irreducibly complex or unnecessarily complex.
Oh, it reminds me of The Last Remnant in a lot of very specific ways.
Yeah, I can see that.
But I would rather play The Last Remnant because at least that game has a pace. Bahamut Lagoon takes forever to do anything.
My thing about Bahamut Lagoon, I guess, well, to really lay my cards out, I also don't like it in Persona 3, where I basically set my 3 companions on auto-fire and hope they do what I want them to do. I also don't like that. So if you're telling me this is a game where one of the primary mechanics is that, I'm like kind of already halfway checked out. It does seem a little more elegant and there's space to grow. But I guess we should get into specifics.
Okay. I'll break it down. So y'all are making, Persona 3 comparisons. I think the game that this reminded me the most of was Shin Megami Tensei Devil Survivor.
Oh, those strategy ones?
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I don't
right.
Shin Megami Tensei Devil Survivor is a weird game.
Yeah.
And probably something we could eventually talk about, but the way the combat in those games works is it is a grid-based thing, but once you actually attack the enemy, it just turns into a round of Shin Megami Tensei combat.
Yeah.
And in the same way, Bahamut Lagoon is you are moving these essentially RPG parties of characters around the map and having one round of RPG combat while you tactics. And then the weird wrinkle to this game, because this is mid-late 90s Square, so it's Square just making weird shit, is you also have dragons that you can raise and feed different grasses, and they will evolve into different dragon types.
I fed mine a battle axe.
Yeah.
You can feed them a battle axe.
They invented the idea of feeding your mag, basically.
Yeah, I guess
Feed
you're right.
your salamander. And
this is the Chow Garden before the
this
Chow
is
Garden.
all is all shit that clearly one needs to look at a game facts guide to understand, because boy, the game doesn't explain it at all.
Yeah, but
This
And
is back when
also-
instruction manuals were a thing.
Here's the other fun part is you don't directly control the dragons. You literally have 3 commands you can give the dragons. Come, go, and wait.
yeah, and that never felt good. I don't know how the rest of you felt, but boy howdy, the saying "Go, dragon, attack this person who's literally about to kill me," and then it just goes and fucks off. Sure was a fun thing that happened more than once.
Mine dove the back line and just died.
Yeah,
Mine
that
almost did
happened
too. Like it scraped by with like 30 hit points or something. I was like, you fucking idiot! You fucking idiot! Like, why did you go do that? Like,
You're
There
a
were times
healing
when-
dragon. Why didn't you heal?
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
times where it's like,
Yukari,
wait,
why didn't you heal?
No,
Go.
bad memories.
Mitsuru cast Marin Karin.
Marin Karin, no, we're at the final boss. I need healing. God damn it.
did someone say boo-foo? I thought you said boo-foo. God damn, we're broken. Fucking
Yeah, so there is a world, I think, where I would have been way into this game, and I still think there's definitely, like, if I was a more patient person who didn't have a bunch of other stuff already on my plate, I would consider visiting more of this. But it seems like a lot, and there are other strategy RPGs that seem like a lot that I would rather get to. Play some fucking Tactics Ogre and Ogre Battle. I'm saying
That's the thing. Like, I it's a contemporary to games that are objectively better. of this style of tactics.
Came out the same year as Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War, which, we're not... At some point, I think they're going to remake that game, but Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War is a fucking solid-ass game, and this game seems experimental and interesting in the way that Square's games from this era were. But it doesn't necessarily seem like something I would like to spend more time with.
And maybe Jeff can chime in with his research, but based off of what I was able to glean, like this was a good portion of the people who worked on this game. This was like their first big project. Like I know that the director, I think, is still working for Square Enix. Like he's working on some of those mobile games and that Final Fantasy VII Remake Arena Brawler that got announced. Like all these were like their first big project, and I just can't help but imagine that they probably had too many cooks in the kitchen and they just put in a bunch of shit. It's like, let's feed our mag, let's do tactics, let's have weird programming stuff here, commands, equipment system. And they didn't really know how to like synthesize it into a coherent, like tactical role-playing game. But, I mean, good on these people. Like the person who wrote the story is the lead writer for Ever Crisis. Like Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis, and they also went on to write the story for Final Fantasy X-2 and Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah,
good for you. Get your money.
Him with his proper credit of Final Fantasy 13.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. So, that's the thing is like this team came back together to make Final Fantasy 13, and it kind of makes sense. Like I went back to the credits, and like a surprising number of people who worked on Bahamut Lagoon worked on Final Fantasy 13 and 13-2 and Lightning Returns.
Yeah, I'm looking at, so it's Motomo Toriyama, who was he was the director on 13. This was basically his first title, and then winds up touching most of the post-7 Final Fantasy. Well, 7, and then he did goddamn motherfucking racing goddamn Lagoon. Please localize that. Please, nice fan people. Holy shit, I want to play that game right now.
Translation people.
Yeah, get to work.
Get to work.
And then the director was Kazushige Nojima, who worked on a bunch of the Heracles no Eiko games. I think those were from Data East.
Yeah. Data East.
They're a very... I want to say
taste,
C-tier also ran kind of RPG series.
Remember when Nintendo tried to bring over Glory of Heracles?
Yeah, man, that's a fucking DS game you can go buy, because there's probably a copy of it in
the
shop right now.
They localized that. They didn't localize Soma Bringer.
Yeah, we'll fucking get to it.
We'll get to it.
So they were supervised by the Gooch himself, but it was kind of new blood. There's interesting ideas, and like I guess if you played this over time, I would have to assume that the dragons stop feeling a little less like trust falls. Like feeding them and developing what would amount to a relationship with them, they would presumably like become more reliable over time. That's a neat idea. That's all right. And like, it's a tacticy feeling thing. The actual I guess battle, when it goes down into the two people siding off against each other and fighting each other, the look of it looks kind of like Romancing Saga. There's like a little Saga flavor to that battle scene specifically that made me like simultaneously excited and scared. Really scared.
This came out before Sakura Wars on the Sega Saturn, which I was trying to research because the whole like element of feeding your dragons reminded me of early Sakura Wars games. I mean, I guess you could say that it's kind of inspired by like the visual novel genre of that era, that 16 to 8 era of visual novels. But even then,
and shit.
It's just a game that has too many ideas going for it. I was surprised when I was like going through all of these lists of like must play fan translations or games that you need to play or import. Like this was constantly on those lists, and I'm sorry, I just don't fucking see it.
Yeah. So, I mean, to poke on that, the reasons this probably didn't get localized ultimately, I think there's definitely, we're still in a world where we're not that far removed from them making like baby's first JRPG for Western markets with Mystic Quest. And we are still pre-Final Fantasy VII. So, and staple on top of that, this was released in like February 96. The Nintendo 64 comes out in like June or July in Japan, and then like a couple months later in North America. And the PlayStation's been out for a year and change in Japan, and about half a year elsewhere. So the idea of let's take this kind of expensive game to manufacture, because it's a big, heavy ROM cart, and then spend N hours localizing it, and then sell it to a place that's not interested in Super Nintendo games anymore broadly. That's probably like a dead letter from I bet this never even was talked about. I bet the conversation never even happened, just on that alone.
Yeah. There's also a dense amount of text. This is a text-heavy game in a lot of ways. There's a lot of menus and stuff that you need to fiddle around with and kind of know what to do on those screens.
Yeah, I can't speak to any story events that happened later in the game that would have been, like, shocking to our delicate, lily-white Christian senses here in North America. But, you know, that would only help make the case to not even fucking bother. So I think this makes perfect sense why this was never brought here. Like, it too complicated, too big, and too late. It's like just a kiss of death. Never stood a fucking chance.
So let's just formalize it then. Do we, off the deep end, would we be interested in revisiting this game for future coverage?
No.
Not really.
I think you actually put it best, Braden, which is if I was 5 years, 7 years younger, I would probably fucking jam with this game in a way that I'm not capable of right now.
Yeah, I think it's very far from bad. Like, I don't think there's anything like that off-putting per se. It's just more than I want to fucking bite off right now.
Yeah, college era me would have been way into this game, but now, if I want to destroy myself, I there are other things that require less investment.
Reki, as a fan, would you want to hear us cover this?
Hey, you guys have a bad time with old JRPGs.
Oh, okay.
But don't play this game.
No.
Yeah, it's worth looking at. You should definitely look at the Nier translation if you want to have a look at this, because it is far superior to the prior one. And again, just to underscore how shitty it is that this remarkably talented and generous with their time, intelligent. I've not even interacted with anyone in the same sphere as this individual, so I can't speak to them personally. But the outpouring of nice things people have had to say about Nier after their demise.
Yeah, just
it's a goddamn human tragedy.
That entire thing really fucking sucks.
Yeah.
I believe there is an article on Waypoint about that Patrick Klepek interviewing Nier about this translation. So I would recommend people look that up if they want to learn about that.
And, you know, generally, hey, if you're feeling isolated and you're feeling like things are hurting, you can talk to people. It's all right. Reach out. Talk to us if you got it. You know, there are resources for you, depending on where you live. All sorts of hotlines, all sorts of phone numbers, all sorts of relatives, all sorts of friends, all sorts of strangers. There's help for you. It can get better. Okay. Good pick. Game 2. This one's a turd.
We're gonna pick my game. Boy howdy. Okay, so I got some explaining to do.
Yeah, so I think originally this was advertised as Live a Live.
Yeah, and you know what?
Good game.
Yeah, here's well, exactly. So I actually booted up Live a Live with the fan translation, started playing it, and I got about like 2 hours in. It's like, wait a minute, I still want to play this game, and it was a real moment of, fuck, I think this might be a future pick for mine for this podcast, and I don't want to fucking collate it to a one-off jokey joke interstitial episode. So it's like, shit, I got to change this pick because this is on like my top 3 now. Live a Live's good, guys. It's really good. It's a game within Squaresoft's wheelhouse that has unfortunately been completely forgotten because it did not get an official translation. It should, and there are really novel and complex ideas in that game that actually translated into the bigger games, be it the modern Dragon Quest games or even just the Final Fantasy franchise that are worth exploring.
Would you say even like a Octopath Traveler has got some of this DNA?
Yeah, Traveler uses a lot of what was pioneered within Live a Live.
Wow, that sounds really exciting. What did you choose instead?
I chose a game that was on an article that I read frantically on Hardcore Gaming 101, Jeff, that said, here are the top 5 fan translations in terms of quality gaming experiences that you should check out. Or it was like fucking some sort of website like that. And this was number 4, I think. And I did no research whatsoever, which is usually the way things roll out when I pick a game. And it on the screen cap that I saw, it had cool cards and interesting art style. And also, just going to put it out there, SNES games are really easy to emulate. And it turned out this game was a big L. This is an L on my part. I apologize. This game was not at all what I thought it was going to be. And this sucked.
Yeah, I think we all found different things that we also did not enjoy about this game.
I guess
Arabian Nights, Sabaku no Seirei O.
It's a role-playing game from fucking
Pandora Box.
And then published by Takara.
Yeah.
And it is an all-Arabian theme revolving around the genies or jinns, and it was 90s era, late 90s era, like months within Bahamut Lagoon.
Yep.
And it came out, and it's a Tales of an Arabian Nights rendition. There's an evil genie guy who looks like an anime character, and then you're this Akira Toriyama looking mofo. And it looks like there's a weird battle grid combat system with like cards that was way more frustrating, and we'll talk more about it later. Way more frustrating to interact with than what I originally thought it would be like. And it turns out that the cards are not actually a card-based system. Like, I saw these cards and was like, oh, so this is like a proto Baton Katos type.
Nope.
No,
it's just a menu-based.
It's just an environmental effect you can trigger.
Which is a real bummer because it's got all this weird visual fidelity, but it doesn't actually translate any of that into
this game is
interesting
very
gameplay.
Pretty.
Oh yeah, this is probably one of the coolest looking SNES games I've ever seen. The only problem is like the translators for this game had a real weird way of going about the fonts in this game were unfucking readable. I don't know which version of maybe you guys picked the same translation I did, but I found like certain parts of the fonts in this game unreadable.
The intro text in particular.
Oh my god, the storybook sequences are just like fucking stylized in a way where it's like, I guess that sure, whatever, you translated this game because this is they probably did a hyper stylized version of kanji for this.
Yeah, I found that difficult to read, but also kind of impressive because like the work that would entail is like take something that is already stylized and then filter it, first be able to read it, which like very hyper-stylized kanji was probably kind of a pain in the ass, but get the meaning into English, and do that in any way that's not completely mechanical sounding, and then not just use the default baked-in text, but basically draw your own text, or font, basically, treatment, and then have that go across the screen. Like, the net effect was like, could you just use, I just want Times New Roman.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
kind of neat. Like, I
Kinda
appreciated the work that went into it. The title card was totally redrawn.
Yeah,
too.
it's a cool looking game, and the translation of this game is actually one of the more impressive ones because the translation was largely done by one person, a person by the name of Ain Ni Hen, who was a member of the translation group for Sakura Wars for the Sega Saturn.
All right.
And then also, like, single-handedly translated Karnov to English in 2006.
Huh.
And so I think that they also have since left the fan translation community, and people have tried to reach out to them because they did do a bunch of good stuff. But this is like one of the odds and end projects that they worked on. Translation aside, there's a lot in this game that I really wanted to... I really gravitated when I started looking at screenshots of this, like untranslated until like the 2010s. That's always cool. Like widely regarded as a hidden gem by multiple publications. Cool. Original setting with like a Middle Eastern feel. That's like a triple check for me. And then, the first battle starts off. The story starts off strong, in my opinions. Like most of the characters are likable. And then you get, your best equipment from the first town, and then from that point forward, everything just is boring.
And then you leave that first town, and you realize how frequent the encounter rate is.
Yeah, it's
Dear
every 8
Lord.
steps or so.
I
gained 3 levels before I got to a place that I thought was where I needed to go.
Oh, and that's the other thing. Like, knowing where to go in this game sucks shit.
Well, because they
it's-
keep
it's
referencing
rather-
south, and you're
Yeah.
moving.
The first dungeon you go to is less visible on the map. It just looks like some ruins than a dungeon you are clearly supposed to go to later. That's just a readability issue. That is your world map does not tell
But
me
it's-
where to go.
It's the first thing you're supposed to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And again, I feel like it's weird in that, like, the frequency of the combat is like every 5 to 8 steps, but none of those like sequences are especially hard. Like, I mean, the enemies do what? Max like 10, 15 points of damage, and you can just off them pretty quickly. It's just a matter of like those early Final Fantasy like 1 and 2 are coming to mind, where it's like the hardest part is crowd management because, your HP and MP levels are never quite what you want them to be, and things dole off. Like, I don't know how you felt about the character progression, but even though I got a lot of levels in this game, I didn't feel like my characters really progressed all that well, or there was this, a rewarding sense of like character growth.
I think the way Jeff put it in the Discord, where this is a game that exists in the context of Dragon Quest being the biggest fucking thing in Japan, and being one of the literal dozens of also rans, suddenly just like rings true in my head, because this is me, uneducated layman, but I get the impression that like the SNES era of Dragon Quest is the high point of that series, like cultural relevance in Japan.
I mean, Dragon Quest V was a very, 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 very big game that I'm surprised didn't get localized a lot sooner, frankly, just because it was so well received and popular.
You can pay $90 for a cartridge.
Yeah, let me tell you, I could, for reasons related to Soma Bringer, I will pay $0 and get apparently the best version of it. Yeah, it feels like a bubble economy response to the success of Dragon Quest, but the bubble economy's gone. Like, there's a ravenous market for games in this genre, and we came up with a concept for one, and we may as well get in. At this point, for reference, June 1996 rather, the Saturn and PlayStation are like a year and a half old. The Nintendo 64 is like 2 or 3 weeks out from releasing. Like, I don't know why you drop this here now. Like, it's a very, very relatively late Super Famicom game for Japan, and that's a place where they had 3 more years of Super Famicom games. Like, I don't see, like, this doesn't feel like it has anything to offer. This is some of my biases too, because when I hear card mechanics in a video game now, I like break into hives and start hissing. Like, I fucking hate all your card shit.
You're the anti-Gino.
Yeah, like, take your Hand of Fate, take your goddamn Gilgamesh, take all that shit, and just throw it. Like, take your goddamn Chain of Memories, take your Baten Kaitos, just burn them all. Like, I don't fucking want to deal with cards. I don't want to look at them. I don't want to think about them. I don't know what it is. I don't know why I have such a visceral reaction to it, but just like, I feel like it's one extra. It's funny for how little it actually is different from just a menu-based system.
See, that's the weird thing is, like, despite the fact that there's this weird card-based system, all it really translates to is, like, visual flair to a traditional turn-based JRPG experience. It's basically the normal menu-based system that you would deal with in any SNES JRPG. Right. It's just, there's a weird graphic that plays when you want to cast a fucking water spell, where a card pops up with like a Joker on it.
And it's funny because you guys talked about the this game looking good, and it's got, like, I can't sit here and say like the environments are bad, like, it's okay, but I think that battle screen is like,
it's atrocious.
It looks like the a lot of like Amiga to 16-bit home console ports would do this. I'm thinking about Populous, I guess, specifically. Like, that's a game that's trying to kind of render a, isometric 3D world, and you can't do that at like full resolution. So they would devote about like a fifth of the screen to this little, terrarium, and then the rest of it is like a static background. And they do that, but instead of having really anything dynamic in that, let's say, rendered neat space in the middle, it's just like battle sprites at an ISO perspective. And the enemy sprites in this game are unique. I've never seen anything quite like that before.
They're problematic.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess I've seen racist stuff before. So,
I mean...
Well, you mean those turban goblins might be a little
that stuff was bad. That stuff was indeed bad.
Like, it's just... the feeling where you're seeing something and you're like, I think this is racist, but I'm not exactly sure how.
This game did a racism!
Yeah, like, I don't know who this is offending, but someone's deeply bothered by this. This maybe gets a little more specific than that at times, but it...
I had no problem with that battle screen. I think it looked bad, but it kind of reminded me of Super Mario RPG, where it just cuts to, like a weird, like, Dutch-angled version of the environment that you're in, and you fight characters where the bad guys are up front, you're down back, and then you kind of animate that way rather than, the standard horizontal medium shot or vertical medium shot.
Another game that sucks. Another shitty game.
Fuck you.
Shitty.
Super Mario RPG is better than your Paper Mario horseshit.
Oh, boy.
My ass.
We're fucking fighting.
We are.
Speaking of
Why are
1996
fighting?
Japanese RPGs for Super Nintendo, that
Super
one
Paper
did
Mario
get
is for
localized.
bitch asses.
Imagine liking Super Mario RPG. Like, imagine waking up and that's who you are. Like, you look at yourself in the mirror.
Being one of those people who gets real angry about Gino not being in Smash.
Super Paper Mario is a great game.
It's a good game.
It's Super barely an RPG. Fucking idiots. Like,
has that
guys
extended bit where you have to ask the man.
Like, all you do is just jump on shit
for the password, and you have to
swapping
type
mechanic
please
looks like
10
ass.
times
like
in a
literal
row.
Ass.
It's so fucking good.
That game
It's,
is weird. I love the exploratory, weird nature of Super Paper Mario, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's a great RPG.
Are just the fucking most like Byzantine designed, like backtracking nightmare level.
Is more interesting than any character in Super Mario RPG.
That's fucking a lie. You have to listen to like 3 paragraphs and 3 essays worth of text whenever you talk to a character if you just want the most basic shit from them.
Super Paper Mario is like a 3 out of 5 game for me. I think its highs are like very high in the Paper Mario canon, and I think a lot of that game is pretty fucking hard to play.
It's better than
even Thousand Year Door has some really low points that I think a lot of people just like. Jeff. I think this N64 original is better than 1,000 Year Door.
I agree. Now we're fighting.
Yeah, now we're getting into
we're fighting
actual spice.
Fucking
Blood Type Lumina in stores end of this month.
I'm sorry that
we're streaming that.
I'm sorry that the Mario and Luigi games, they made more quality Mario and Luigi games than Paper Mario. Like that game, that franchise is a franchise in name only. They made 2 games that were actual RPGs, and then everything else is just not what you want.
Weird adventures.
Yeah, what I dislike about Super Paper Mario in retrospect is it's the inflection point to where Paper Mario became bad.
Like Miyamoto's like weird experimental
we have
space.
2 Mario RPGs.
And I say that as someone who really likes Color Splash and whatever the other one is, it's escaping me right now.
Whatever the fuck.
Origami King.
No, or Origami King. It's really good writing, but man, those games suck.
You know what's a game that commits to its mechanics from beginning to end? Super Mario RPG 11 of the 7 stars, motherfucker.
Half of that game's good.
I'm not going to dignify that. We have to talk about Arabian Nights. Why don't you think it got localized?
Because it has a weird interface that's super fiddly and requires a lot of text in order for you to navigate it or understand it. And, this game came out late, and it seems like it was not even well received in Japan, which seems to be the kiss of death. Late SNES during the transition to the N64 didn't really strike a chord within Japan in and of itself. And I
don't have... There's no wiki article on Pandora Box, so I can't sit here...
Giant Bomb's got you covered.
All right, what's on their... let's have a look at what else they
stuff
did.
I've never heard of. We got Burai, Hachigyoku no Yushi Densetsu, Oni, whatever that series is. They have a lot of stuff that none of it was translated.
Yeah.
So I'm going to assume they just didn't have the money or didn't want to front the money.
Because
they didn't have the clout to like get a deal from some of the bigger studios.
Yeah, I mean, Takara was a company that localized some stuff. Like Battle Arena Toshinden came out with the Takara name on it. I think they might have been that game too. Like, so they had the Dosh, but I don't know, the distribution wasn't there.
I feel like this episode is accidentally turning into the prequel to our inevitable we play the 4 JRPGs on the Nintendo 64 episode.
Oh God.
I feel like this is the logical conclusion to us talking about why wasn't this localized?
Sure. Well, that's all the JRPGs for the SNES, like a Zelda Ocarina of Time, Hercules, The Great Adventure,
Aiden Chronicles,
Super Robot Tyson 64,
Hybrid Heaven.
Oh God! If you say Hybrid Heaven too many times, Jeff will pick it as his nickname.
Body Harvest before they changed it back into an adventure game, but after they changed it from an adventure game to an RPG. Body Harvest has one of the most tortured production histories I think I've ever heard, ever. I bought that game on vacation for $10. It is just looking at me.
Of course, Quest 64.
Yeah. Magical Holy Century or something like that in Europe. Because
remember when Mother 3 was supposed to be an N64 game?
God.
Yeah.
Remember that minecart sizzle reel that played in E3 and that blowing your fucking mind when you saw it?
Remember those Final Fantasy VI renders for the N64? Like,
Yeah.
Those are cool.
That's some iceberg shit for you people and your iceberg meme. There you go. Hey, I don't want to play this anymore. Like, at
Nope.
all.
No, this game sucks.
Yeah,
I
This
don't think
game
it sucks.
is
I think
bland.
that it's just
it's
bland,
very
yeah.
bland. Yeah, it is.
I guess. How much time did you put into it?
This was my pick, so I put in about a solid 2 to 2 hours.
I put in 90 minutes.
I can't lie. I walked around in that desert and de facto grinded for a little while, and I was like, you know what? This is never going to happen for me. Like, this is never going to happen for me. Not in a million years.
I got half an hour. I walked north, and I got clubbed by some dudes that were like 3 times my level, and I said, okay, I'm good.
Yeah, Gino would have to pay me. Gino's going to throw the fucking bag at me, Aaron Rodgers style, if I'm playing this. I'm not doing it. Nope. Well, let's go into the DNF section along with Bahamut Lagoon. There you are. So, tier list followed by did not finish. Which I guess we didn't finish some other games on this tier list, but we felt confident about ranking them. These feel like we're in like the so they're notched down there. Thank you for playing Arabian Nights. Get on to this third, my thing, which I'm so excited to talk about. So, Soma Bringer is a much later game than these two. It is a relatively contemporary in its life DS game that was made by Monolith Soft, a company we've already seen on Off the Deep End with their hit game Xenosaga Episode 1, Der Wills are Mocked. And they got gobbled up by Nintendo in about 2006, after Xenosaga, the series, wrapped, basically.
Mm-hmm.
This has some of the same minds who worked on that game, and I found out that, God damn it, Mitsuda, the guy who composed Chrono Cross, A, did the music on this, B, also was responsible for the music in Xenosaga Part 1, which... when I think about how good Chrono Cross's music was and how I can just about remember some of the music from Xenosaga, really kind of bums me out. I think this is a better musical piece from the bit I've played, the hour or so, than Xenosaga in some sense. But that's kind of ahead of ourselves.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's not... Look, saying something is not as good a music as Chrono Cross is like... you aren't as good of a person as Gandhi. Like, it's a preposterous comparison. So that's not fair. But to rewind, so this was their Monolith Soft's first mobile handheld game. And the thing to keep in mind, the inflection point for this sort of handheld RPG experience in Japan is it was somewhere in this crease that Monster Hunter 2 got released for the PlayStation Portable. And in addition to causing arthritis for millions of people, making that little claw hand to play Monster Hunter on a PSP, because of how the buttons work on that little fucker, the thing that really made big
was the one analog stick.
Yeah, singular
nub nipple analog stick.
I just tried playing that Metal Gear Solid game that came out for the PSP recently. No, don't like it.
Yeah,
don't like it.
If you want a Metal Gear game, you should just play the card game, Jeff.
Yeah, fuck no, nope. If there was a series I would try it might be that one, but nope. Not gonna do it.
I like Metal Gear Acid.
It's cool.
Anyways, it's a cool idea.
A guilty treasure of one Matt Rory, as I understand it. The portable co-op, local co-op in these games are really big. It's a really densely populated country. There's a very, very advanced transit system. There's like hundreds of people crowded around each other, and it's very easy to get local ad hoc wireless play. So, this is a game that I think is fundamentally designed around local ad hoc wireless play to have like the full experience, which none of us did. So I think we are not getting necessarily the full fat experience. And I don't know if I'm necessarily going to have that as like a disqualifying factor, because they made a game that you can play single player. You should be able to play it single player as well. So that's what we did. And this is a game that at best, I would say, feels like a PlayStation 1 spin on something like Mana or Diablo. It's an ARPG with an ungodly amount of fiddly shit and descriptive text in it. And a paper-thin story that binds it together. Like paper-thin. Because it's a multiplayer co-op game, and they wanted something that you could not necessarily be like super distraught by not, reading, basically, because you are on a train for 20 minutes.
Too wordy for that goal, though.
It sure is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they just missed the mark on that one. I'm sitting here trying to recall the plot of this is like the world has magic in it, and they call magic Soma, and it exists as rocks in some places, and you are part of some sort of paramilitary organization, mercenary outfit in the world, and on your adventure, a lady falls out of one of these rocks.
You're forgetting the part that at some point there were mysterious monsters called visitors that started corrupting life, and they need to be beat back.
I sure did. That's correct. I totally forgot. Because, boy, I was buttoning through. At a certain point, I started buttoning through. This was also a little bit ago. What do you do in this game? So it is an ARPG. So there is a class system in this. You start this game by selecting a class, which basically just limits the sorts of weapons stroke attacks you can. It basically, like, the main determinant is at what distance you need to be from an enemy to hit A and have it hit. Because there are basically like long AoE ranged magic users and like shoot a gun people and then swing a stick people and then swing a shiv people and then punch people. And they all have fancy names, let me assure you. They are all names that you can look at and pick one if you like it. There wasn't one named Harrier. In Xenoblade Chronicles X, there's a class called Harrier. Let me tell you, as a Space Harrier fan, I chose Harrier. Nothing was as memorable as Harrier. You go into a world which the maps are kind of weird. They're, let's say, .png files that just sort of end in like blackness at the outer edges. So it's a 2D plane, basically, that you're walking around on as a 3-dimensional sprite, but it is very, very zoomed out, so it just has this very floating in space look to it. It's kind of odd, and I enjoyed the music that was playing with that. And then you come upon one of these visitor monster creatures. You get a closer zoomed in fight sequence. And I think this is where the multiplayer part of this really kind of makes the most sense, because ZP put this really well in chat. It feels kind of slippery. It feels like the whole game has this, well, not the whole game, these fights specifically. It feels like when you hit it, because like when I say Diablo or the Mana series, your Trials and Legends of and shit, the thing about those games is you get up to like whatever it is you're fighting, basically, sword and board style, like right up in their guts, and just click on them until they die. Like, you just sort of get right next to them and stand and deliver until one of you runs out of health. And this is a lot more like you click A, and your character kind of moves a little bit. There's like a little lunge to the attack, and there's some knockback on everything. So, generously, it feels dynamic. But specifically, it feels kind of like, well, what? I need to move a little bit to hit him again, and why have I constantly got to make these little adjustments like endlessly? I think that makes sense if you've got 3 people, you and 2 of your friends, wailing on like the ghost pig or whatever. But when you're doing it solo, it does feel just a little sloppy.
That's weird because I picked the giant sword man.
Yeah?
And I had the opposite experience. Because
Really?
of the way the camera would zoom in and out, I was missing a lot of attacks because the giant sword man doesn't move when you attack.
Huh.
And the monsters don't really knock back too much.
What's the range on the sword?
Not as big as you would expect considering how big the sword is.
Really? I chose
Yeah, it's
the
like
also
quarter of the screen.
like giant sword.
I chose the Shiv Knight, the one that's got 2 little handheld weapons. And yeah, I had to kind of get up right on people. And it felt just a little... I mean, the whole thing feels a little mashy, ultimately. I think that's by design. But
And here's the thing, like, the DS as a platform for RPGs, like, there are some solid fucking RPG. Like, there's like every single Pokemon game that came out. But even beyond that, like, Reki, does this game compare favorably or unfavorably to The World Ends With You?
Unfavorably. The World Ends With You is one of the greatest games ever made.
Jeff, does this game compare favorably or unfavorably to Dragon Quest IX?
Unfavorably. That's a much more content-rich
Braden,
game.
does this game compare favorably or unfavorably to Shin Megami Tensei Strange Journey or Shin Megami Tensei Devil Survivor?
I mean, I don't much care for either of those games, but I would rather play a middle-of-the-road SMT game than this.
And I would say that this game also compares unfavorably to Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story, which is secretly probably one of the best RPGs on the platform.
Yeah. We're gonna pause this real quick. What did you just throw fucking slander at my boy Strange Journey? Did you
I'm
just?
saying Strange
I love
Journey
Strange
is
Journey.
fine.
Strange Journey whips ass.
I'm with
okay
Jeff.
Strange
I can't
Journey.
believe I agree with Jeff. Like, Strange Journey claps. It's like it's one of the few weird roguelikes that makes the whole roguelike element.
Strange Journey's not a roguelike.
But it has the weird element where you have to punch out of the dungeon before you finish. It's like the one...
That's just every Shin Megami Tensei. That's how I play them.
It's the one time where like the dungeon spelunking element feels good for me.
I have weird, complicated feelings about main series Shin Megami Tensei that we will have to get into at a different time. But Strange Journey's fine. You should have said, "Is it better? Does it compare favorably to Etrian Odyssey?" And I would have said, "Fuck no," especially not the later ones.
How does it compare to Fire Emblem? Either entry on the Nintendo DS.
I don't like the DS games.
Speaking of fan
compares
translation,
unfavorably to Sands of Destruction.
Oh God, yes.
compared to, I mean, speaking of fan translations, New Mystery of the Emblem fucking claps.
Yeah.
Shadow Dragon is bad, and New Mystery of the Emblem is so much better.
Guess which one we got?
Mechanics and having the same crappy art style.
Yeah, they're dog dick ugly games. Like, I cannot believe how bad those 2 games look.
Yes, and just
That's an insult to dog penises, Jeff.
just the most antithetical mechanical choices for Shadow Dragon. Listen,
you say that, but you've constantly told me that my opinions about Sacred Stone are ass backwards.
Yes, because Sacred Stones is fine. It's just easy. We're getting off track here.
Okay, yep.
Yeah,
So, Soma Bringers.
I think Soma Bringer is, like, fine.
It's fine.
It's fine.
Okay.
I think
It's a weird
context.
game
like,
with the context that it's between Xenosaga and Xenoblade.
yeah. Like, it's a weird... It's funny that that's, like, the first project that they had was this, like... and for how large the game kind of is, it feels like a very small work between those. Like, all this company does is scale. Like, they have no chill, basically. Like, it's either God and space and Talbot
Robots.
Jewish mysticism robots, or body of 2 gods that you're running across, or 1,000 tooltips in one game. Like, a game built out of tooltips. I think that is the main reason this
Or-
did not get localized.
Making a large chunk of Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, a game with a
Oh,
ton of
yeah.
scale.
I did do that.
I don't think this got localized mostly because of just how much goddamn text there is in it. And I think that's the only
there's an
reason.
insane amount of text in this
It
game.
is surprisingly wordy.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
the story, for as uneventful as it is, sure does tell itself a lot. And then just there's menus and items and descriptions on them. And
a lengthy tutorial to tell you how to attack.
Yeah.
In this
Which
very
I was
straightforward,
surprised
simple...
at how good the tutorials were in this game. Like, considering that, this whole Deep Listens network gives JRPGs a bad time in terms of how poorly told the tutorials are in this genre in general. I thought the tutorials were surprisingly...
This game over explains
well
itself, where it's like,
Yeah,
here's
this
how
game's a
you
lot more
assign an
straightforward.
attack to a button. And I'm like, cool thing, cat.
it's nice looking. Like, I think this is, like, genuinely all right, but
for a DS game, a regular DS game, it's a looker.
But
Like the backgrounds look all right. The 3D models are like decent.
like, I think, well, I'm pretty sure this is like a 128 meg cartridge, which was approaching the high end. Like, the two biggest games for the system were like 512 meg. It was the Ni no Kuni and the one where the guy married his DS, Love Plus.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Are we going to have to play Love Plus, Jeff?
Boy, that's translated, and I think I kind of want to play that game, but maybe not in the near future.
Maybe for the next Kusoge episode.
That's not technically a Kusoge pick.
Is it a game?
Love
Love
Plus?
Plus?
Yeah.
It's a life choice, but
It's
yes.
I think what a game is an interesting question.
Hey, Braden, remember when we had a friend on Giant Bomb who was involved in the fan translation of Love Plus?
Oh, that's right. Is this bowl of lentils?
No, Bowl of Lentils. I'm talking about someone who initially maybe claimed they were female and then was slowly but surely outed as male.
Yes.
Oh no.
Oh.
They seem to have. I think you know who I'm talking about.
Bowl
They
of
seem to have-
lentils.
They
Shout out
this
to
person-
him.
Yeah, Bowl of Lentils
For
is super into
working on-
Sakura Wars.
Worked on the Sakura Tyson translation and also, I believe, the Great Ace Attorney fan translation right before
Yes.
Nintendo officially announced that localization. Anyway, shout outs to him.
But also the
Anyway,
other
yes,
person we're talking about.
Now I know what you're talking about.
Worked on Love Plus, and what's that fucking game? That's that game where you date all of the schoolgirls and God, I forget.
I'm gonna need a little
Yeah.
more than that, man.
Yeah, it's like
Anamanagima.
Are you casting a spell?
Please localize Tokimeki Memorial 2.
please
Fan
localize the
translators.
first one. I can't believe
Or the
all the
first one.
all those girl side ones are translated, like fan translated on the DS, and that girl side one is a PS2
Amagami.
game. Amagami.
Kimmy.
Okay,
Yes.
yes, I know what. Okay, yes.
And you also probably know who I'm talking about now.
I know who you're talking about, and okay, yeah. Please look forward to our Love Plus episode in 2025.
Yeah, that's honestly about
When this
the time.
podcast spinoff will be older than the Confederacy.
What-
We gotta beat the rebels.
Beat back Johnny Reb. Yeah, I may personally continue fucking with this because I will have so much commuting starting literally last week and going until I retire. But that's my mess. I don't necessarily think this is off the deep end material.
Like I said, it's slippery mechanically, and I didn't necessarily feel as if it was rewarding enough. It felt like a baby's first Diablo with like some anime ass trappings, with these characters that felt nice and were cool renditions of tropes that I've seen countless times prior.
Yeah.
There's a weird counter hit juggle mechanic.
I was just about to say that too.
Get that break mechanic kind of thing in there. There's things going on, but
to go back to my earlier point, like when you consider how many quality JRPGs or RPGs are on the DS, this is pretty low on the list of DS RPGs I would recommend a person.
Yeah. I will say the only thing that surprises me that this did not get localized is just how many games did. The DS was
destruction.
154 million or something, like 150. I think it's like the first or second best-selling console like ever anywhere, like in all territories. Like that you could. There is so much shit and shovelware and garbage and so much middle of the road and so many like let's take a chance on this games in the DS. I'm like, that's the only thing that surprises me that this was not. And I don't think there's even like a floating like beta of a translation. So it was. In addition to the monumental volume of shit that had to be translated.
Yeah.
That's the part
once
that
again,
also
Jeff, Nintendo decided to bring back and localize Legend of Heracles.
Yeah.
Which is a C tier JRPG franchise that they somehow obtained the rights to.
Hey, man. At least they took the time to translate those two Etrian Odyssey games to the DS.
Yeah.
And those games are fucking baller.
Etrian Odyssey is rad.
I don't know how much this matters, but Pokemon Platinum came out shortly before this released.
Okay.
That probably makes a big difference in the scheme of things.
Yeah. But like also games like Radiant Historia came out, and that's a very, very, very text-heavy game.
It's neat. You're nice. You do you, Soma Bringer. You can live on my very not jailbroken DS. When you boot it, nothing happens. You have to hold down the A button to make it boot into crime mode. That's the secret. That's
Hold A for crime.
Yeah. I gotta say, any of you curious, you wanna... This mostly stemmed from the cartridge slot in my DSi acting kind of weird a couple times, and they discontinued the store on there, so they aren't making any money anyway. So I did the digging around. It turns out, opening that little shit wide open, 10 minutes. Like, you fall off the log.
Did you know it's incredibly easy to flash the firmware on a 3DS?
Yep.
I haven't gone to 3DS.
Not saying this for any reason. I'm just saying, putting that out there.
I'm just saying that I'm glad that DS emulation has been figured out, because, you know, not everybody wants to go back and play that DS Wizard of Oz game that's in no way, shape, or form connected to the movie. But I sure as fuck want to play the Wizard of Oz Beyond the Yellow Brick Road JRPG that uses a weird green trackball to control the characters.
Uh-huh.
I'm just happy to have the Japanese and the European localization of Tinkle's Rosy Rupee Land available with me everywhere I go now. Feels good.
Fan translations led me down a dark hole of buying fan translation applied reproduction cartridges of DS games.
Huh. I don't know they were doing, like, I see the SNES ones all the time, but never seen a DS one.
Yeah, I've got an Ace Attorney Investigations 2 lying around.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's a good fan translation.
Baller fan translation. Also, that game is one like Fire Emblem, the second installment of that series that didn't come out in the US. Way better.
So good. Oh.
Yeah, and then you get super depressed when you play Golden Sun Dark Dawn.
Oh, yeah.
Why are you going to target me like that?
Forgot. I think when this was originally pitched, the game
such a bummer.
The game I originally proposed to this was Nadia. The
Oh, right.
What is the full Nadia? Okay, so Fushigi no Umi no Nadia, which is like
of Blue
Nadia,
Water.
Secret of Blue
Yeah,
Water.
it's based off of the anime, right?
Yeah, so that is a Sega Mega Drive game. It was localized by, let's see, IND Hen. By the way, this was a Darth Nemesis translation on Soma Bringer, and it's good. It's alright. He missed a couple of the, really superfluous, encyclopedia entries in the game, but otherwise it's, comprehensive. So this Nadia translation, the notes on here, it comes from King Mike's translations and someone named Ian Nihan. And it's not an RPG. And I don't say that lightly because my definition of RPG is quite broad, but it's an adventure game. It's just it's very go to place, use item on thing. That's how the story gets told. There's no real, stat, combat, mechanic, nothing. So disqualified pretty quickly thereon. I thought this was an RPG, but it is not. It's an adventure game. It seems okay. If you like Nadia and you like Mega Drive sound, you might want to look at it. But not for this show. It's all right. Buy your Terra Onion Mega SG and slap that fucker on there because they're never making a repro of this because it's for 3 people in America. And only me because I'm a Namco guy, not an anime guy. I believe in God. And living God's love in his light.
Why you gotta target us like that?
Well, no.
I've been in the dark a long time.
Just me and Sailor Moon, baby. Speed Racer. That's what I like. A little Ranma from getting froggy. So that's our fan translation episode, done and dusted. So 3 DNFs. We will not be continuing with Bahamut Lagoon, or Arabian Nights, or Soma Bringer. And as luck would have it, I believe our next selection for what we'd be playing, our next big boy game, our next mighty kids meal, as opposed to the regular kids meal,
Yes.
goes to Arbitrary Water, to Braden himself.
Hi.
And I think I know what it is.
I've been teasing this for a while because, I get into fits and starts where I'm like, I'm gonna buy a bunch of dog shit on eBay, a bunch of old games because I have a scan converter and feel empowered. And I stream video games on the internet and have ruined my brain by viewing games as, will this make interesting or amusing content for the 4 people who watch me? As a result, my pick for our next game is a 2004 RPG made by EA Redwood Shores, also known as Visceral Games.
Oh,
I'm of course talking
Dead
about
Space people.
The Dead Space people. Before they made Dead Space, though, they made Lord of the Rings: The Third Age, a shameless Final Fantasy X knockoff with a cast of OCs following the Fellowship around. We're at the 20. We're about at the 20th anniversary of Fellowship of the Ring. So
and the Amazon series of the Second Age is coming out.
What better way to celebrate the 20th anniversary of perhaps, I might argue, one of the best film trilogies ever than a weird JRPG spin-off made in 8 months by a bunch of people who crunched themselves crazy.
That is basically just Final Fantasy X, but reskinned.
Starring the
Or
porn
Final
parody
Fantasy 12.
versions of The Fellowship.
I have been looking forward to this for a long time. And I'm going to play this game.
How long is this thing?
20, 30
hours.
Yeah.
It's not super long.
I'm going to play this game the dumbest way possible.
You're going to play it as God intended?
I'm playing it on a 360 via software backwards compatibility because it is one of the very weird whitelisted handful of original Xbox games that is back compatible on the 360, and that is how I'm going to pipe that over HDMI out the projector in my living room so my wife can look at this thing. Look at this thing. Look at it.
I want to do one quick request.
Okay.
I think that even if it's just an aside, we should at least all of us check out the GBA version of this game, because the GBA version of this game is like a weird tactics XCOM spin-off with like character progression and character leveling up.
I am so happy you brought this up.
Absolutely.
Because that was my original plan, was just see what the GBA version was about. And it turns out it would be like you two talking about Lord of the Rings, The Third Age, and me talking about like a potted plant in my room. It'd be two different conversations. I feel like the arcs of these games are quite different, but we absolutely need to have a look at that GBA thing, because it's like they made something for Braden, pretty much. Seems like it.
I appreciate it when people like video games for me.
And only for you. I wonder how any of these sold. Like the goddamn Two Towers and Return of the King brawler
Those games are
were
solid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still hold those trilogy game adaptations, even if they're like, smash them up. Like
They are pre God of War hack and slash games.
I think that someone back in the day was like, it's like Dynasty Warriors, but with Lord of the Rings and kind of funner.
They the Return of the King has the advantage of having actual co-op play, which I don't think the Two Towers had. And also having like a bunch of Two Towers stuff in it. So if you're looking to buy one on the secondhand market, might I recommend Return of the King?
It was
They're
that
both cheap.
Yeah.
It was that, Escape from Butcher Bay, and maybe Spider-Man 2. Those were the only movie. We were all as kids enamored with the fact that these are movie games and they're actually good. They're not terrible.
Yeah, it's weird. The Lord of the Rings series really was this like bellwether of like where popular culture was going, which was like, hey nerds, now your shit's cool, but it's also not yours anymore. Like people who generally wear a lot of polo shirts with pop collars have opinions about like the individual kingdoms in Game of Thrones now. Like it's
I did wear a lot of polo shirts in middle
Yeah,
school,
me
so this
too.
checks out.
well, I'm
Yeah,
referring
me
more
too.
to grown adult men, but
Okay.
yeah. Hey, I got one in my closet. Okay, no one's perfect. All right, we're all right. It's okay. I ain't yucking a yum. I ain't shaming no one for in a polo. Guess I'm referring to the frat row by University of Washington, where I go by somewhat frequently. But those lads, they really, really, really care about how Iron Man's suit is supposed to look and work now. And 20 years ago, that would have been an anathema. So like, yeah, the weird, like, yeah, I buy fucking 15 years ago, it's like I got Madden and I got this Lord of the Rings brawler. Like, what? One of these things is not like the other, and yet they were so popular and so good that it actually happened. It was a real thing. For those of you who don't know, if you're from Canada, football is a sport we play in America, and there's this this old man. He rode in a bus. His name was John Madden, and he invented football.
We love football here, don't worry.
Yeah, rah-rah Eskimos. Yeah.
John Madden's how I know what the turducken is.
They should put the CFL in Madden. That would be fucking hilarious. I would love that.
Yo, BC Lions, let's go.
Or just like bring back Euro football, Euro NFL.
I want to, man, when everything gets better, I am 100% going up to Kamloops to watch Seattle play up there, because I love Kamloops. I love Interior BC. It's one of my favorite places in the world.
It's great to visit.
I mean, look, people there, it's an interesting, I will say this, fuck Kelowna, but...
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I know some shit.
Braden, if we start
Why
talking
would you
about
ever
Warhammer
say
2, we
anything mean
can
about the
drown
Kelowna
him out.
games?
I think it's stupid the way his little ears grab the ball. And also
He's
I
got
hate
the
their
dumb
yuppie
ring.
ski town. Yeah.
Hey, Braden, did you see how there's a fan petition to try and bring fishmen into the Vampire Coast?
Okay.
Wait.
Sure there is.
Castlevania is going into Warhammer? Well, I'm gonna go to hell now. So, hey, Lord of the Rings, the Third Age, you should find it.
Find it at your local library.
Yeah, there's lots of ways to find these games now. I'd love it if you went to one of the mom and pop stores we described a couple episodes ago. But as SNES Drunk says on his channel, you should get this one any way you can. We'll probably be putting an episode on.
It cost me $10 on eBay, including shipping.
It is not a...
It is not an expensive or valuable game.
Yeah, for his not... I get the sense that it's fine. It's not like a turd, but I guess they just made a lot of fucking copies of it, and no one's interested anymore. So, yeah. Probably be back in 3-ish weeks with an episode covering the Third Age up to... that's where, if I decide to edit in a point we're going to go to, it'll be right there. Until then, thank you for tuning into this installment of Off the Deep End. Thank you, Reki, for showing up. I appreciate you being on here. It was been fun. Yeah. We should do more guest appearances. Even with you. As mentioned earlier, questions, concerns, threats. Don't send threats, but other things you can send them to inquiries@deep.lol. I look at that every day. Also,
send your hardcore pornography.
Yeah, send legal in this territory pornography.
Send your requests for us to play Omega Labyrinth live.
Oh, right. Let's do the pitch, Jeff. If you join on the Deep Listens Discord or chip in any money to the Deep Listens Patreon, we will happily take your suggestions for a game for this weird little experiment.
Yeah, that is absolutely the case. We will be following up on that in due time.
We have to ask Reki what he wants to torture us with, and then also Soup, and then also other people.
Gino Grieco.
We have to ask Doyle what he wants us to play.
I suppose. A certain Joe gave us a couple ideas that I think we might take them up on that too. Yeah, so that is to say, we are listening. Like all good woke corporate messaging these days, we hear you.
Do we have to watch the anime adaptations of any of the RPGs we play, Jeff?
No.
It's this is derailing our outro, but I discovered there's a Mass Effect OVA.
Yeah, there is.
About fucking Vega, like the character that my wife who loved those games
Vega
does not remember at all.
Freddie Prinze Jr. saying,
"Hey Jeff, this is how I trick you into watching Tower of Druaga."
No.
Yeah, we'll get there. As mentioned, any dollar amount that you contribute is appreciated to Deep Listens Patreon. Excuse me, that is patreon.com/deeplistens. I'm not going to edit this show very much. I think I'm just going to mail this one in. Special shout out to the artist.
I gotta stop talking. I'm sorry.
I'm going to beat the shit out of you if I see you.
I'm going to make you play PSO episode 3.
Man,
we should play PSO. Yeah, you're right, Reki. We should play PSO.
It's a mystery dungeon game where their boobs get bigger the higher level you are.
You could strap multiple tits on your character model in PSO.
They've just about got the original Xbox cracked open enough that you can play that game online again. They've had to do some really weird network spoofing shit to make that work. But man, the OG Xbox Live version of Phantasy Star Online. Oh, want it in my veins. Patreon.com/deeplistens. Special shout outs to the artist known as SuperSex420. My favorite part of the show is talking about SuperSex420. We all know him and love him and his great vaporwave hits, including the great song Halfway, which you heard at the beginning of the show and you're probably hearing right about now. This and other great tracks available on bandcamp.com. Just search for SuperSex420. See you next time. And remember, I think this is going to be my new line that goes here from now on. There's no such thing as cheating in a single-player game. Bye-bye.
Cards are good, actually.
This episode of Off the Deep End was recorded and edited on the traditional and ancestral territory of the Nisqually or Nisqually people, who have lived on and stewarded these lands and waters since times immemorial.